What's up, my box truck bosses? It's the Business Doctor, and welcome back to another episode of Box Truck Bank, where we discuss all things box truck. And today, I'm going to be talking you through how to run a box truck business. What does the operations management look like? What systems and processes need to be in place to help your box truck business run smoothly, but also to give you the capacity to scale your business? But before we get into that, there's a few things that I think you must consider before you even consider what you want your system or operations to look like. And that is, what is your goal of getting into the box truck business? What do you want it to look like? For me, when I entered the box truck business, by year one, I wanted to have 5 trucks. I only made it to 4. I didn't get to 5, but that was my goal. And my goal was if I could build up my fleet, build up my staff and personnel, then I would be able to step away from the business and the business could run itself. Now that was my personal goal, but I've talked to other owners and owner-operators who want to be involved with the day-to-day operations and know what's going on. Now, even with me stepping away, it doesn't mean that there aren't checks and balances or that I don't have any idea what's going on, but I'm not the one booking the loads and managing the drivers. And that was important to me because I want to spend my time doing other things. Like today, I cut my yard, picked some weeds, and been doing some yard work this entire morning. And for the past week, I was out of the country in Cancun for a vacation. So if you set your box truck business up and grow it the right way, you will be able to enjoy those things in life, spend time with your kids, your family, but you have to start with the first truck. I've met owner-operators that I just want to drive and that's it. And that's fine if you want to do that, but still, even if you're just driving your one truck, it is very dangerous to have one truck. Having one truck, you jeopardize losing your whole business if that's the only source of income you have. And this is why it's important that you understand how to run and operate your box truck business. So first, what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through the organizational hierarchy I had when I was running 4 trucks. This is a good snapshot of my business where you can jump in and see where I was at when I had 4 trucks, who did what, how we managed it. So I'm going to walk you through this hierarchy and everyone's role, and then from there I'll break it down how things ran. Okay, so if you look at this hierarchy chart, it breaks down the roles of everyone. This is with 4 drivers and 4 trucks. So let's, start from the start from the top so that you can see the bird's eye view of everything and how it operates. So the owner, that was me. And I had 3 direct reports, which was the dispatcher, the fleet manager, and then HR and accounting manager. These were the individuals who worked directly with me. I hardly ever, maybe once in a blue moon, ever talked to the assistant dispatcher or driver 1, driver 2, driver 3, or driver 4. Doesn't mean that I didn't want to. No, it's not what that meant, that I was too good. But we create this process so that way there's a checks and balances and everyone has a defined role and responsibility. So let's start with the dispatcher. The dispatcher, this individual was responsible for finding the loads, calling the brokers, negotiating the rates, submitting the rate cons, submitting all the paperwork, getting the certificate of insurance, and anything that's required with not only booking the load, but then also dispatching it to the drivers. So the dispatcher role was important. And this is one difference between box trucks and semis. With box trucks, you may be on a low board looking for sometimes 2 or 3 days. With semis, normally you can find thousands of loads. They're a lot easier to find. So the dispatcher really needs to be focused on booking the loads. When I started off with just 1 or 2 trucks, The dispatcher had multiple roles, and that was sometimes even me, and it made it difficult because I then had to manage all the other aspects. So all the dispatcher is doing is booking loads. Sometimes you may find a load in an hour. Sometimes you may find a load in 3 hours. And then they use their assistant dispatcher to kind of help assist them with booking loads. Because if you've never dispatched before, you could get 2 or 3 calls at once, and you need to be able to answer the phone and book it with those dispatchers. So the dispatcher was important. I'm going to show you all how that was actually managed between the dispatcher and the fleet manager. So in just a moment, I'll show you another document which will kind of show you how it was dispatched and communicated. So the dispatcher, assistant dispatcher, their main goal is just dispatching and negotiating the loads. The fleet manager's job, as you can see, they have a direct line to drivers 1 through 4. So if the drivers 1 through 4 have any issues, they contact the fleet manager, and the fleet manager will resolve it. The fleet manager is responsible for check calls in the morning, making sure that the drivers have dropped them off on time and delivered them. If the drivers have an issue with the load, with finding the address, the fleet manager is responsible for working with the broker and coordinating with them. The dispatcher doesn't communicate with the drivers. Now, I know that's not normal. You may hear that dispatchers work directly to them, but for my company, this is what seemed to work best, because also you have to consider the skill set of each individual. The dispatcher needs to be someone that knows how to negotiate, someone that's pretty strong-minded and can handle those brokers. They may call you 6 a.m. and you get cussed out in the morning. They can't let that ruin their day because they still have 3 other trucks that they have to book loads for them. So you really have to be able to develop those relationships as a dispatcher. The fleet manager has to be able to manage the drivers. There's 4 drivers, 4 different personalities. They're away from home, so that means they're away from their family, they're away from their wives, their girlfriends, their children. So drivers can get pretty frustrated and angry at times, and you have to be able to manage them. Otherwise, it could end pretty bad. I've had some drivers who call and say, "Oh, I'm done. Your truck is in another state. I'm headed back home. Go pick it up. Here's the address." And we don't want that to happen. Now, there are some things you can put into place to help manage that in their driver contract, but that's a different video on a different day. So the fleet manager manages the drivers. So what's really important for communication is between the dispatcher and the fleet manager. And this is what we have. I'm pulling up. This is a mock-up. These locations, addresses are just ones that I made up for the sake of keeping it private from my shippers and receivers. But when we look at this, if you look at this first column, column A, this is Google Spreadsheets. It operates in real time. What does that mean? If I start to type in a cell right now, anyone that's logged into this document will be able to see it. Whether you're in California, New York, Florida, Washington State, anyone can see it. And that's another thing with my team. We were all working remote. So we had the dispatcher, the fleet manager, and the HR and accounting manager were all in different states and cities. So we had to communicate virtually. So this spreadsheet was really what helped manage the business. Now, I didn't put all the loads on there because I didn't want to overwhelm you, but this is just to kind of give you an idea. So as the dispatcher will go to column A and enter in the shipper's information. Now, this is all done after the load has been booked. It has the name, AR Supplies, it has the address, and the zip code. That's the shipper. Then it also has the receiver's information. The receiver's information includes the name, the address, city, state, and zip code. If you scroll over, it also has the loads, the load number, the truck number, what driver it is, the load amount, the pickup number. Now remember, the pickup number can sometimes be different than the load number. And then they have the delivery date. And this is what the dispatcher agreed upon with the shipper. And then also, this is the ETA. So this is going to be important. The fleet manager is responsible for updating the ETA. So that way we know if there's any delays. Because this is also important for the HR and accounting manager to look at. Because if you're factoring or if you're doing quick pay, depending on what you're doing, you have to submit the loads by a certain time. So if we know that the load is going to be dropped off 30 minutes before it's time, the HR and accounting manager will communicate that with the fleet manager. Say we need that paperwork as soon as they get done, so that we can process it and get paid, and not have to wait another day or two, especially if it runs into the weekend. So everyone is getting their information from this spreadsheet. They don't have to call, they don't have to text. As long as this is updated, they should be able to get the information they need. And every now and then, you may need to pick up a phone and call. Next, it'll be the broker's information. It'll just be the name of the broker. In case for some reason the fleet manager needs that, or if the for submitting for invoices need that information. And then we have the notes. This notes section is just anything that's important. Pick up by 9 a.m., deliver by 10 a.m., RC, which is Raycon not uploaded, might need quick pay, submit it. And if you actually open this cell right here in column K, you can see the full notes. And there's initials that you see QP-KT. That's initials, so that way we know who wrote it and what date. So you just can't see it because the cell cuts out, but you can open that up if you want on your computer. Next, we have our miles. So if you look at the miles, this is all going to be summarized, and the miles will include your rate per mile. And this is a formula that I'll put in this spreadsheet. So if in column L, if you enter in new loads or add change numbers, it'll automatically change this rate per mile based on your total, which is in column F for the amount. Now, this was just 4 loads. This wasn't a full week, but this was just to show you. Now, also, you may look at why are the different rows highlighted? Well, if you go with me to the key tab, it'll show you what each one means. White means en route. Orange means needs to be submitted. Green means it's been submitted, which means submitted for payment. And pink means, or this hot pink kind of means paid, which means my company has received the funds for this load. And lastly is dispersed. This really works. Some drivers at one point, if they're on percentages, or some people are being paid per percentage or load, this says that person was dispersed and paid for it. So that way we track when you were paid for the load. But there are different ways to pay drivers, so that may not apply to you if you're doing a flat rate. But if you're doing a percentage, then this disperse will be important because you know the driver got paid, and you can add to your notes where they got paid. So when you look back at the spreadsheet, it's highlighted based on the current row. So if it's white, that means the truck's on the road. And for me, I really want to see pink and green because then that means we've been paid and people are getting dispersed. If it's orange and green, that means we have money sitting out there that we're not getting paid for. So this spreadsheet, you can manipulate or create one similar to it if you have other things that are important to you. But with this, you kind of get a bird's eye view of how many loads we did from week to week. And as you can see, the dates are in the top left-hand corner. If you look on row 2, if you look on row 12. Also note on row 12, it says 4th of July holiday. This is important because you know that on Monday, there won't be any deliveries that will be made. So if your driver makes it Saturday, the driver's going to have to sit Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And this is important to plan out when you're booking the loads. Holidays are always difficult, especially when they end on a Monday, because Monday is the beginning of the week, and it's really important to have the trucks on the road. But with holidays, there's nothing you can do about it. Now, another thing to remember, as you see my weeks from June 20th to June 26th, and then the next week is from June 26th to July 30th. This is based on our pay weeks. So June 26th would be a Sunday, and then it goes till July 3rd, which is a Sunday. So when you look at, not June 26th, June 27th, June 27th to July 3rd is our week, Monday to Sunday. This is important too for payroll. Your drivers know what days are paid for, what days they were off based on the week. So if my drivers are getting paid on the 5th, that means the 4th won't be in that paycheck. But this is really the responsibility of the HR and accounting manager. So let's go back to that uh, operations chart. And as we look at it, we see dispatcher has one direct report, assistant dispatcher. We have the fleet manager, which manages the drivers, anything to do with the drivers. If a truck has issue, if a truck breaks down, if they need to get repairs, if they need documentation, if they get pulled over at a weigh station, they all communicate with the fleet manager. The last one is the HR and accounting manager. This is the person responsible for onboarding our drivers when we hire new drivers, when we hire new staff or contract workers. They're responsible for getting all the paperwork done and getting them to the fleet manager to get their test drive and get them on the road. They also manage the books, looking at what is our rate per mile, looking at are we making on-time deliveries, making sure that our drivers have signed contracts. If there is HR issues with complaints from the drivers, the dispatcher, the fleet manager, or anyone, they all handled by the HR and accounting manager. Another responsibility, specifically with box trucks for the HR and accounting manager, is being able to book the hotels. So the dispatcher and fleet manager can things kind of lighten up once the driver stop. But for the HR and accounting manager, they have to book 4 hotels every night. And I'm gonna throw this in there for free. Make sure you sign up with some company, Priceline, Expedia, where you get points for booking your hotels. I recommend Priceline. They didn't pay me for that, but I recommend Priceline because they give you really a lot of points for what you, if you're spending on hotels every night, and you normally get them pretty cheap after you booked up even just a few weeks of hotels. Because remember, that's 4 hotels a night, 6 to 7 days a week, depending on who's on and off. So those costs start to accrue pretty quickly. So make sure you're reaping the benefits of spending that much money on hotels. And lastly, once we make it to the top, is the owner, and that was my responsibility. So as the owner, my responsibility was to make the dispatcher, the fleet managers, and HR and the county manager's job as easy as possible. Do they have the right systems? Do they have the right resources in place to help them do their job effectively? Because if they do their job effectively, it should trickle down to the drivers. So I'm always looking at process improvement. What can we do better? What are some of our weakness areas that I can help, or weak areas that I can help improve? Now, this was just with running 4 trucks, but it gave you the capacity to scale the business. Now, one dispatcher can likely handle about 5 trucks. Now, this dispatcher is a full-time dispatcher. This isn't something they're doing on the side. The dispatcher was full-time. The fleet manager was full-time. The HR and accounting manager was full-time. The assistant dispatcher was part-time. But drivers 1 through 4 were all full-time. So we need people that are invested in it, especially if you have models where they make commission or percentage off the loads. That'll kind of give them some motivation to make sure that they're maximizing their time and being as efficient as possible. So you understand how the box truck business operates, but what does a typical day look like? So with my team, I required that we all be on a conference call at 6 a.m. in the morning. Truckers don't sleep. Time is money. The early bird gets the worm. So we had to be up early. At 6 a.m., everyone gave an update on what happened the day before and any issues we may have that day. So we looked at, was everyone, did they make their miles they were supposed to make? Are they ready for their drop-offs in the morning? What time will they be dropped off so that the HR and accounting manager can know when to upload the invoices so that we can get paid? And it's kind of just a time for us to come together. Now, every now and then, depending on schedules we will maybe do them at night, but 90% of the time we did them in the morning because that was most efficient. A lot of things can happen overnight, even if the driver stopped. We had a driver one time call in the morning and said, my gas top is missing. So we had to find a place where the driver could go and get a top. It was like $70 or $80 and resolve that in the morning. So this also gives a time for the fleet manager to give check calls, make sure people are up and on the road. And really what's important is we don't always do calls, but with your ELD system, you should be able to track to see if they're on the road. If they're not on the road, that could prompt you to give them a call without having to call them. Because I like to, empower my team that works with me. I don't want people calling them every day. Did you wake up? Did you get there? If we have to do too many of those calls, you may not be a good fit for our company. But the ELD allows you to manage them without always having to send a call or text. So 6 a.m. we wake up, we get a call. There were some issues the day before. We explain how we got them resolved. We say where each driver should be arriving by noon, what time things should be uploaded. If there's any issues with drivers, we'll say, I think we're going to need to replace a tire, or there may be some mechanical issue with the truck. We'll discuss how we're going to handle that. And then by noon, there's always some issue. The driver couldn't find the location. The load wasn't ready, so our driver's been waiting 2 or 3 hours. And time is money. If we wait, we may miss picking up the next load, which will mess up the whole week. By the evening, another driver, may say, can you swing me through LA? I need to go meet my family. I have a family member that's sick. So we say if we're able to, we'll coordinate it. But being a owner of a box truck business company is being a problem solver. You're going to have a different issue every day. And are you going to be able to think quick on your feet and figure it out? Or are you going to sit there and let it get the best of you? Now, when I went into box truck business, I didn't have any mentorship or any guidance, so I had to learn the hard way and learn by mistakes. But I produced these videos to help you maybe prevent making those mistakes. So as I end this video, I just want to remind you, it's important to get a system in place. Don't run your business like you have one truck. Even if it's another year or two before you get another truck, I already start developing those processes because it'll make it a smooth transition, especially if you grow your fleet overnight. The last video I posted, I went from 1 to 4 trucks overnight, but I did that because I had this system in place already that could handle scaling and growing my business. And I want to spend my time doing the things I really enjoy and that matter to me. It doesn't matter how much money you make in trucking. If you don't get to spend it and enjoy it with the people you love and care about, is it really worth it? And that's what I had to decide. If I couldn't build this system, I wasn't going to be in trucking. But this system allowed for it. So don't forget to please like, comment, and subscribe. And it's the Business Doctor back at you again with another episode of Box Truck Buck. This is how you run a box truck business. And this is how the operations management looks. So if you have any comments or recommendations for improvements on the spreadsheet or a system that you use that work a little better than this, please feel free to comment below.